Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. So this video is a continuation of my Kundalini Awakening video, but this specific chapter is on Mount Shasta. Because Mount Shasta plays such a huge role in my spiritual awakening and also my Kundalini Awakening in 2013, I'm dedicating this video just to Mount Shasta because this trip did change my life in ways that it's still very prominent in my life right now. And this is 2026. So if you want to hear about my Mount Shasta journey and experience, then please keep watching. So Mount Shasta is actually a place that calls to you. If you've heard any stories about anybody that's miraculously ended up there, or it's like a place that literally calls to you, and it's known as the root chakra of the earth that I learned about over the years. And it's a place of spiritual awakening, a spiritual journey. It's very magical. Even till this day, I still think about Mount Shasta and how life-changing it was for me. So when I was a kid, Mount Shasta did make an intuitive appearance into my life. And I had forgotten about it. So let's go back in time where Mount Shasta was starting to call to me even as a child. So when I was younger, my parents loved to take road trips. Even when my brother was born, my parents just loved taking us on road trips everywhere. And I think it was about the time that my brother was about 1 year old. And I believe I was about probably 7 or 8. I can't remember exactly how old I was, but it was around the time that I was having a lot of spiritual insight, premonitions, and things coming into my life that I could not explain. I was seeing visions of the future, things like that. And I still see those now, but at the time I was obviously so young and I didn't have the language for it. And I remember this specific one. And my dad loves to drive at night, especially to California. He's used to driving at night because, first of all, it's cooler, there's less traffic, and he can do this trip. He's done it many, many times. If he was a long-haul truck driver, he would have done so well because he loves driving. And I remember this specific trip. My mom's asleep, my brother's asleep, and it was just me and my dad. Obviously, dad's awake because he's driving. And I remember seeing the sign on the highway for Mount Shasta, and I instantly had a vision. Instantly. I saw myself as a grown-up walking Mount Shasta, and I blurted it out loud. I said, Dad, oh my gosh, you see that Mount Shasta? I'm going to go there one day. And he goes, why? All it is a volcanic mountain, and there's nothing really there. And I remember him saying this, and I was like, I don't know, but I think in some time in the future I'm going to go there when I'm grown up. Little did he know that actually was going to come true. So fast forward to 2013. I was in my mid-20s. I remember so much was going on that year. Oh my gosh, I was having my Kundalini Awakening. I was given a meditation that changed my life forever. I was having dreams of the Hindu god Shiva, that the Eye of Horus was coming to us. I was married at the time with my ex-husband, and he was dreaming about the Eye of Horus. I was dreaming about Egypt. We were having all sorts of spiritual awakenings happening all at once. It was overwhelming to the senses. And I remember I was telling him, like, let's go for a psychic reading. Even though I am very intuitive, I'm very psychic, but when your emotions are overwhelmed, it's really hard for you to know, are you really sensing this, or is it just paranoia or just things, circumstances around you? You have to be very calm to get spiritual insights, and that's why I journal a lot, and I keep a record of everything, and I still have. I have all my records. And I remember saying to him, I'm like, let's just go to make sure that we're on track, right? So I remember we booked a reading with a reader at Whitby's Books and Gifts, which is no longer open anymore, unfortunately. It was a family-run business, so, you know. So yes, we went for a reader there, and I knew the owner very well. So when my ex was in for a reading, I was kind of roaming around the store because, you know, I want to look at all the metaphysical stuff. And I remember the owner was working that day. Specifically, she was working. She doesn't work all the time, but she was working that day. And I went around the counter of where their cash out area is, and they had all these tarot cards and things like that, but they had this specific book, and I have it here. And it's the 7 Sacred Flames. I remember seeing just the front of the book. This is what the front of the book looks like, right? And I picked it up, and I heard Mount Shasta. And she saw this. She turned around, she's like, "Did you just say Mount Shasta?" I said, "Yeah, I just picked up this book." She's like, "I know, I just saw you. You didn't even look at the back." And I said, "No, I haven't even opened the book." And she goes, "Do you know that that book that you're holding was actually published in Mount Shasta? The lady that wrote the book, Aurelia Louise Jones, she's actually was called to Mount Shasta." And I was like, "No, I don't even know anything about this book." And she's like, "Interesting." She's like, "I'm gonna order you a copy of that book. I feel like you need to have that book." And I said, "Okay," because this was a store copy. And as she's ordering it for me, she's talking to me still. She's like, "Do you know Mount Shasta calls to people?" And I was like, "I think it's been calling to me since I was a kid." And she turns around and she looks at me. She's like, "I think you're meant to go to Mount Shasta this year. I just have this feeling." And she's like finishing ordering me the copy. I asked her if do I need to pay in advance, and she's like, "Nope, don't worry about it." I forgot to mention in the video when I was recording that when I received the copy of the Seven Sacred Flames, the violet flame was in there twice, and one of the flames was missing. And the violet flame links to Saint Germain, which links to Mount Shasta. So it was like even the book was intuitively telling me that, hey, you need to go to Mount Shasta. I kind of wish I would have kept that copy, honestly. And yeah, I kind of wish I kept it, but at the time, I guess I didn't realize. I took it back and had her order me another copy. And but anyways, yes, that was another sign that I needed to go to Mount Shasta, because when I got to Mount Shasta, everything around, especially like the metaphysical stores, were all about the violet flame, was all about Saint Germain. And I just found it very fascinating that my original copy was the violet flame was in there twice, and one of the flames was missing. I don't even know which one it was. And yeah, so just wanted to add that in, and we'll get back to the video. So at that time, my ex comes out of his reading, and he's just like, he's spiritually blown away because he just had a really good reading. And I told him what was happening while he was in his session. And he's like, "You're right. I think we should go to Mount Shasta. I think we should." And because of all the things that were happening to us, we needed like a spiritual retreat, honestly. And everything was lining up so that we could go. We like let our clients know. We booked everything, make this trip for a week. So on the day of the trip, oh my goodness, we left really early because my dad was giving us tips on like trying to get out of Seattle before traffic. Well, unfortunately, that did not happen. By the time we reached Seattle, there was already traffic. We actually stayed in traffic for about 4.5 to 5 hours. There was like an incident that happened. It was like our trip was being delayed. And I remember my ex was not in a good mood. I was just like, what's happening to us? Like, is the mountain keeping us away? Are we even meant to go? And I was like, maybe we should stop to eat somewhere and see how far we can get after that. So I remember we stopped off somewhere. We had lunch and we continued our trip, but there was still so much traffic. And I'm like, it's going to get dark. And I know not everyone's like my dad that can actually make a trip over like at night. This is our first real big road trip in the US. So why don't we just pull over for the night and make the rest of the way in the morning? So we found, oh my God, still can't believe this. My mom's gonna be like shaking her head when she hears this. We found the only place that was available with vacancy was this dingy motel. The only thing that was good about this place was the fact that we could pull right up to the door, and because we had our camp gear, and we were not expecting to stay anywhere. And I remember it was the last vacancy, and we were like, okay, we have to take it. And we stayed there. I don't even think I slept over. I don't even think I slept very well that night. But we stayed the night there, and then we made the rest of the way to Mount Shasta in the morning. And it wasn't that much longer, maybe an hour to 2 hours away. So Mount Shasta is basically about a little ways after the Oregon border, because it is on the northern side of California. And I remember as we were getting closer to the sign that I remember seeing as a kid, and the turnoff for Mount Shasta, I was starting to have all these emotions coming up, and I don't know where they were coming up from. I was starting to feel very overwhelmed, and I could feel the Kundalini energy rising. Like it's like this heat of energy that rises from the base of your spine, and I could feel it like bubbling up. I'm going, oh no, not right now. Because I know when that happens, I start having a burst of energy and a burst of emotions. And I was experiencing that a lot that year. That was causing a lot of changes happening. And at that time, again, I did not know that Mount Shasta was the root chakra of the earth. That's the other thing I want to mention. I didn't find that out until I think that's when I went to go pick up some books at the bookstore. She told me that piece. So yeah, we turn off from Mount Shasta, and he says to me, maybe we should go find our campsite, get the site at least situated, and pay for the night, and then go down to the town site to get some produce, meats, and because obviously we didn't bring you can't bring any of that stuff from Canada. I was like, sure, why don't we do that? Let's go set up and then head down to the camp. Then head down to the town site after camp. We get to the mountain and we start setting up, and the ranger comes by and he's just kind of greeting us. And we give him the payment. He tells us about different hikes and stuff, and we're telling him that we're going to be going back to town site to get some food, and he's like, sure, that's a great idea. And he told us make sure that after we cook everything to eat it or get rid of it, because there's been bear sightings. So to be very careful, and because there is wildlife on Mount Shasta. And just giving us kind of this the rundown of everything, and we're like, we're used to it. We're used to being outside. We're used to being in wilderness. So we were like okay with everything he said. And so we head down to the grocery store, which isn't very far from the mountain. I just want to add that in. And it was a mild day. I don't remember it being quite hot yet because it was still pretty early in the morning and we hadn't had breakfast. And it was between breakfast and lunch. And I was like, okay, we should pick up some stuff. So he took a basket and took off to the butcher counter because at the time we were still eating meat. And I took off to go get snacks for the hikes and different different foods like eggs, things like that for breakfasts. And after we were done, we met at the cash out counter. So when we got to the truck, he put everything in the cooler. We had 2 coolers. We had one full of ice and one with a fan that was powered by a battery pack that was charged by the truck whenever we were driving. So everything was secure. We were ready to head back up to the mountain. So when we got back to the campsite, I started to get the tent ready, things like that, just kind of get everything set up. And he said he was going to cook lunch. And I'm kind of working around the tent, getting the bed set up, and all of a sudden I hear him swearing. And I look over and I go, what happened? He goes, you're not going to believe this. We just bought this. I literally looked at it 2 seconds ago, and you're not going to believe this. The meat has already gone sour. And I'm going, wait, that's not even possible. We just literally bought it. Like how? And he held it up and he's like, it wasn't even this color. And I looked over and I'm like, oh my God, it's like not even the right color anymore. What happened to it? We're stressed out from having to deal with traffic yesterday. We had to stay at a motel and we barely eaten even last night. And I was like, you know what? Let's just have breakfast for lunch. Let's just do that. Make it simple. We don't have to have this elaborate thing right now. And then we can go on a hike because that's what we came here for. And I'm just still setting everything up. Meanwhile, I'm also having detox symptoms that I'm not telling him about. I am running to the bathroom. He's noticing I'm leaving camp every few minutes and he's like, are you okay? And I'm like, no, I'm not. Something's happening to me. I was having detox and it started right away. I hadn't eaten anything that would cause this and I was just having it happening to me. We ate lunch and then we head off to going hiking. We haven't met any of the campers yet. We just wanted to kind of explore a little bit based on what the ranger had told us. So I believe we parked around Bunny Flats. I can't remember exactly. I think the trail was called Bunny Flats. I'll have to look and make sure, but I think that's the name. And we parked there and then we started walking. I remember I was wearing my Hydro Pack backpack and he had a backpack as well, which we carried like on us with like survival stuff, just like, different things in case like, you run into wildlife and stuff. And just to keep us safe, like I remember I had a whistle, things like that. And we started trekking up the mountain through the trees. And I started feeling these overwhelming sensations. Like I'm feeling them, but I'm not saying anything. And there's something else that I didn't know, I found out later, is that the indigenous people of Mount Shasta do not go past the tree lines for a specific spiritual reason. And that's because they believe that anything past the tree lines is where the sky people live. They really believe that. And I'm beginning to at the time I didn't know this, but after I heard it, I was like, that makes sense. And you'll understand in a few minutes. So we started walking, we started walking, and I didn't realize that we were out of the tree lines. And I'm just having these emotions coming up. And I'll insert a photo because this is an actual photo of me, and I do not look very happy. And I'm feeling overwhelmed. I'm having sensations. Everything is overwhelming me at this moment because I'm realizing we moved into the wrong house. We're going to have to move out again by the end of the year because we're not going to be able to sustain ourselves with clients leaving. The trip is going sideways, but I'm not saying anything. I'm just ready to scream at the top of my lungs. And the heat of the Kundalini is rising through my body at the moment. I remember sweating. I remember feeling, we had barely even walked. For two people that own landscape business and are walking a little path, to us it's nothing because we're in grueling situations all the time. And I knew I wasn't winded from the walk. I was winded from the emotions that I was feeling. And it was intense. And at every step we took, it got more and more intense. We keep continuing walking. My ex is walking in front of me, and I'm just like livid. I needed space. I remember I needed so much space. I just didn't want to look at anyone. And I realized, I'm like, look at anyone. There's no one even around us. I'm like, where is everybody? The campground was full. Where is everybody? And so we kept on walking. And then we got to this marker point that actually is a summit point where it tells you it's a boundary for the summit. And it says anything past this, you need a permit. So we just kind of stood there. I don't think I have a picture of it, but it's the summit marker where it says anywhere past this, you're going to be summiting the mountain and you need a permit. I was like, okay, well, I'm just taking in the mountain from this view. And I'm like, it just looks so gorgeous. And all of a sudden, as I'm looking up, I'm seeing this. And I kid you not, this is a true story. I'm watching a man walking from the summit down. Like he's switchbacking. And this guy, I'm looking at him like, how is that even possible? How is he walking? First of all, this is on an incline. And how is he switchbacking so fast and such a rapid pace? Again, we're physically fit people. We've done rock climbing, things like that. I've never seen anyone do anything like this. And we've seen some very paranormal things on our hikes. And I'll get into that in other videos, but this was something else. And on top of it, this man was shirtless and he resembled the image of a Greek god. And I'm not joking. He was like athletic built, shirtless, golden tan skin, like golden, like his skin looked like gold. Blonde, long hair, and we're just standing there in awe. I remember my ex was looking. He's like, I could hear him in front of me. How is that even possible? And I'm like, I don't know. And I don't know how much time has passed. We're just standing there, and this guy reaches us. And I remember my ex was like trying to talk to him, and he said in such a thick, thick French accent, no English. I remember this. And as he was walking past me, I looked at him and he looked over at me, and his eyes were this golden color that it looked like sun rays. And he kind of just smiled and kept on walking. And when he walked past me, I turned around to see where he went, and he was gone. I don't know where he went. It still gives me goosebumps because I don't know where he went. And we never saw him again. And this was before I knew all the mysteries of Mount Shasta, like the UFO sightings, the mysterious disappearances, why the indigenous people don't cross past the tree lines because there's known to be sky people. I still to this day don't know who that man was, but I never saw him again, and nobody else ever seen him at the camp either. This is where the trip kind of got interesting. So we head back to have dinner. And I remember the ranger came by and he was just kind of greeting us at this point because he had already met us, but he was just greeting us, seeing how our trip was going. And we asked him, we said, oh, we just made extras for dinner and we realized obviously we can't keep this. Would you like anything? And he goes, oh, no, I'm vegetarian. And I'm like, oh, okay. That makes sense. And I'm familiar with people being vegetarian. I was raised in a Hindu culture, so I understand like some people like don't eat meat. And my ex, he came from a Mormon background, And he understood right away. He's like, yeah, no, we understand. Meanwhile, as we're eating, we're getting attacked by hornets. And I'm like, oh my God. So after that, we packed up, we cleaned up from dinner, and I thought, well, the leftovers, we're either gonna have to toss it or see if anyone in the campsite and in the campground would want some, you know. So we packed it up in little to-go containers that we had brought, and we walked around the campsite to meet people, basically, because we had never been to Mount Shasta, and we knew that most people would probably have some cool experiences or have been here before because each of them had different American license plates. We greeted everyone in the different campsites. And one thing that we found was very interesting was every single person we came across was vegan or vegetarian. So I remember I coming back to the campsite after this. Maybe we should be vegan and vegetarian while we're here. And my partner at the time, he agreed. He goes, you know what? Because we keep getting attacked by hornets, that's a good idea. Because every time we tried to eat, it was annoying. It was like the mountain was attacking us. So I was like, we agreed. And one of the campers said that there's a really good vegetable market. We just kind of have to go on down the certain road and look for the people that are dressed in hippie clothes. That's the right place. I remember her saying that and I laughed. I was like, okay, we're going to look for the hippies tomorrow. So the next morning we head down, and we also found this little labyrinth thing and like a little meditation area that I'll insert some photos of because it was beautiful. And then we made our rest of the way to finding this little market. When we found it, oh yes, there was definitely people out there drumming, and they were so fun. We said hello to them, and then we walked into the little, it was like basically like a hole in the wall little market, and they had the best fruits and vegetables. It looked so fresh, like farm fresh, that we started loading up on things. I remember grabbing avocados for guacamole. I remember tomatoes for salsa. Like we were grabbing all sorts of things. And then I came across this lactose-free cheese, and I was like, oh, we're grabbing a bunch of those. And we were so excited. We head back up to the mountain, and we made some lunch, and then we wanted to go on, to explore. But before we left, the ranger came back and mentioned that Panther Meadows, that was under construction when we arrived, was going to be opening in the next day or so, and that we may get a chance to walk through it before we leave. I was ecstatic because I was like, I've heard a lot about Panther Meadows from all the campers, that they said, oh, we really hope you can be able to go there. It's such a beautiful place. Like, it's just gorgeous, la la. And I was now excited because I had never heard of this Panther Meadows until, everyone was talking about it. And we had other places that other people had mentioned to go, like McLeod Falls, the Mineral Springs, and just to go to the headwaters, and just these different places, these high vibe places. I don't think we made it to Ascension Rock. I can't remember. I think we did. I can't remember. I don't have photos of it, but we might have made it to Ascension Rock because I remember we were sitting on these rocks we were doing meditation. So I think we did make it to Ascension Rock. But these different vortex points and things like that. My ex, this is going to be funny, he was leaning against a tree in one of the vortex areas, and he was talking to me, and then I remember he stood forward, and then he went to lean back. The tree disappeared. He's like, where did that tree go? I said, I don't know. This place is full of mysteries. I still at this point has still no recollection of UFOs, disappearances, and things like that. I just saw a tree disappear and I had no explanation for it. And he didn't want to look back. So we left that vortex site. That was a very interesting one. Yeah, we did end up walking through Panther Meadows on the last day. I remember that morning specifically, the ranger came and greeted us, and he was showing us a picture of this rainbow. It's a clear, clear day. It's sunny. Very sunny. And this is when California was experiencing drought. They weren't having any rain, and it was sunny. And he was showing us a picture of this. He took this during that morning, and he's like, during his morning rounds. And it was a rainbow from the ground to the sky, ascending up into the air. And I looked at my ex, and he looked at me, and we looked at the ranger, and we all knew that this is one of the mysteries of Mount Shasta. Oh. That one thing I forgot to mention, we had our dog with us, and the dog was in daycare for most of the time because obviously we couldn't take her to any of these spiritual places and certain hikes and things that you can't take your dog to. So she was with us, but she was in daycare Originally, she wasn't supposed to be on the trip with us, but circumstances happened and she had to make the trip with us. So she was in daycare, which she thoroughly enjoyed. She loves playing with other dogs and she enjoyed that. And the lady that took care of her was awesome. It's like everything lined up for us. We did so many things while we were at Mount Shasta that changed my life. When we left Mount Shasta, we left vegetarian. And then 2 years later, in 2015, we became vegan. Mount Shasta, even till this day, I think about it all the time. I think about the emotions I felt, how it played in my spiritual awakening, the man that descended the mountain, still don't know how that happened, the tree that disappeared on my ex. That was funny. Um, and there's the other stories that the other campers told us about because we really believed. And one of the things the ranger said is before we head out is to grab some water from the Sacramento headwaters, um, because it's so pristine and clean. And he was so right. It was everything about the trip was magical, everything, and it's still the highlight of one of my most spiritual journeys. I think to myself now, after finding out that Mount Shasta is the root chakra of the earth, it made me think of my goal for this lifetime is to visit every single one of the chakra points. I do believe that the Great Pyramids is one, Mount Kalesh is another. Obviously, you can't climb Mount Kalesh, but you can get close to it, that you can feel the vibrations of it for sure. Because you don't have to touch anything that's high vibrational, you just have to be in the presence of it. So, if you made it this far in this video, thank you so much for watching. I'll be sharing so much more of my journey moving forward. So, if you like these types of videos and you want to see more, then please subscribe to my channel because I'm telling you there's more to come. I'll see you next time.